one power and presence active in my life in the universe. I want to live from that place. I don't want those just to be words. And one of the things that's been inspiring me is as I've tried to look at that powerful thing, is I found the book by Jim Rosemergy. It's the Gathering You. And we've actually studied some of Jim's work before. Remember in November of 2019, 2019 we had a gathering month. And this was a book, so it was really The Gathering. And it's one of Jim's first cracks at this. And it was a 40-day guide of spiritual practice. And so I challenged myself, and there was only just a few of us on the call, but we got up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I did the 40 days of meditation. And I've got them recorded, and I've got them on, they were PowerPoints. You know, you couldn't see us, but we played the PowerPoint, and we sat there in 15 minutes of silence. And I continued it. We actually ended up doing it for a year. Travis, you were so loyal. You came every morning. But yes, Chris, of course, and Grace. Those meditations I use all the time. I come back to them over and over and over. It was a wonderful practice, and there were 9 points that Jim made to this, and they're kind of incorporated in what I'm doing today. So I'm not going to go back over those, but he realized that, okay, I started with this practice, and then he's going for global awakening, you guys. So let me tell you a little bit more about Jim Rosemergy. He is a unity minister. He retired in, I think, 2017, but he's still very active in the movement. I've seen him at like Canoga and other conferences. And actually, he's a vet. He was a Navy aviator and flew over 100 missions over North Vietnam and lived to tell about it too. So, and he's a very dynamic and active person. But one of the hallmarks of Jim Rosemergy's work is every meeting he starts with, I think, 3 minutes of silence. And he was, some of y'all know Debbie Toms. He was her mentor. And Jim, I'm going to tell you, every once, he has a bit of a separatist language, talking about God the Father a lot. But nonetheless, he's very sincere and serious about his spiritual practice. And he calls himself Awakening God's Candle. And, you have to light that wick. So, but I love, this is a quote from him. The truth is most of us know exactly what to do. We just don't do it. The choice is never made, and therefore the change never happens. The reason is that we have to go deeper than choice. More is required. It's called commitment. Commitment is our call. And when we know we are here for the spiritual purpose of being awakened God's candle, so the light can shine, it is easier to make more than a choice, to make that commitment. So, now, in the period between, right after he retired, it was 2022, when he wrote this book, this new book, he was so disturbed about the divisiveness in our country, and we all have been all worried about that. And so he began to write a political blog. He said, I can do this. Oh, my spiritual perspective, this would be wonderful. But he got so frustrated, and he just really doubted himself. Can I make a difference? And he said, my attempts to find answers in the world to the country's disharmony just led to all that frustration. So in 2022, he had a spiritual breakthrough. He peacefully accepted this. The answer is not of this world. The answer is always spiritual. The answer is always spiritual. And he gave a great example of that with, he talked about the gun situation. So, I said that a moment ago, everybody's right and everybody's wrong. Everyone has a point of view about guns. But we keep trying to pass laws, and then Congress resists passing laws. And so maybe that's not the answer. Maybe there's something underlying some of this. There's fears of rights being taken away. There's fears of violence. I don't know. There's something more. So laws are passed, but a law doesn't change a mind. A law doesn't change the mind. A law is not a wind that lifts us, enabling us to see a new world. Only a spiritual awakening is going to cause the scales to fall from our eyes. Human consciousness cannot solve our problems. Think about what Albert Einstein said, that we can't solve the problem from the level that we started, So the answer is always spiritual. Okay. Jim pointed out, he had a little chapter about Jesus. Now, when Jesus, in his world, the Romans, it was kind of a mess in Jerusalem. There was slavery, the Roman soldiers. If you really just pick a time, any time in the world, and there's always mess going on. We're not unique. We think we are. We feel like we are, but we're really not unique. Well, it's the same. Yeah, many issues the same. So we're human. But Jesus, the thing about Jesus didn't run for emperor. He didn't run for Congress. He didn't. He didn't really confront people directly. If you really think about what he did, he never talked about the plight of women, and he treated women with respect and inclusion in his inner circle even. He never challenged the violence and war to Roman soldiers, but he did say, turn the other cheek. He opposed establishing the kingdom by violence. And of course, that work was the basis of Gandhi, the nonviolence for Gandhi and for Martin Luther King and Marshall Rosenberg. Jesus never challenged slavery, but he said the truth sets us free. He never talked about education, but he did talk about knowing. He didn't mount a campaign to eradicate poverty, but he suggested giving out cloaks to those in need. So that's just, I don't know, that was just kind of an interesting perspective for me. Well, what did Jesus do? He started a peaceful uprising. He planted seeds for individuals to have a spiritual awakening. He wasn't timid. I mean, God, he went through and three money changers table on, scattered everything in the temple. But he came to bring an inner conflict to what he did. He challenged us to change from the inside out. So, as we know, some of these principles of change, that's really what he offered, a new perspective, a new way of thinking. And they're really kind of simple. Think of our Unity 5 principle, which, by the way, we're going to be really concentrating on again in June. It's going to be another good series. But we are 100% human and 100% divine. Where I think we get in trouble is when we invest all our effort and time in what is uniquely individual to us, like where we live and work, a partner or a spouse, a personal asset, all those possessions we own, all those things we live in. Is that where we're investing our heart? Where our heart is, there also lies our treasure, they say. So we just get caught up in attachments. Could be a simple preference for something, or it could be an internalized identity. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. And then it could even move to fanatic ideologies, which we are seeing these days. Like certain religious ideologies, or, and political, and then it ends in us, then society. And then we're, just thought we would stay on our oneness. But really, we all have the same universal needs. Actually, the scarcity of resources is really the source of war and conflict, if you think about it. I didn't realize this, but I saw this on Sunday morning. It was in 1908 that the Brits first discovered oil in the Middle East. So before then, they weren't drilling for oil. Well, and then also before then, there wasn't the need for that in cars and all of that sort of thing. But if you think about it, so much of the war is on It's about resources. No, not that. No, not that. So,
Well, losing the mental, they was given a lithium
yeah,
in South Arkansas.
I know.
Exxon Mobil that bought a million of acres in South Arkansas.
Wow.
And, well, there's the report. And when he was there on China,
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, and the Japanese, when they started invading Asia and all that, Japan was a small island, and what they really were trying to do was well, they needed resources, natural,
Yeah.
that they didn't have, so it's kind of what it is, but, okay, so that's our human situation. Well, now, our divine identity transcends earthly events and circumstances, yet it can be very practical. Can we live and grow in the flow? Now, we do say let go and let God. We do say that. But you know what? I know I do. I still think, oh yeah, but I really look better. I know I'll do it this way. I got my plan. I'll do this. Do we really let go? So that's the rub. It's just letting that happen. And so Jim tells a story about he's written many books, and he's a wonderful writer. And he wanted to write a book, and so he booked a cabin in the woods. And he thought, I isolate myself. I'm going to set it up to be perfect. I'm going to have my computer, and I think I'm just going to go to town. Well, he gets there and he sets it all up, and nothing came to him. And have any of y'all ever been like this when you're trying to create something? Like, have you stared at a blank canvas and nothing comes? Or he was staring at the computer screen and the cursor was just blinking. Nothing. He had a block. Exactly. And eventually he heard a voice that said, Jim, your purpose is not to write. Your purpose is to know me. Know God. Or no spirit, or whatever. Know the one. Know the one we know. Another person that I know has gone through this, and I said, no, I can't go down this path and give a lot of detail. But Michael Singer has written The Untethered Soul, The Surrender Experiment, and Living Untethered. And the Surrender Experiment really tells his story, and it's fascinating. It shows how he personally learned about this letting go and letting things arise and just coming into a flow of life. So there really are people, Jim, Michael Singer, many of us are trying it. It can be done. I know it's sort of a simple idea, yet a real challenging idea, but it's just a way to live, Now, in this book, Jim talks about 3 simple things. He talks about pivoting to God. He did that in the gathering as well. Always pivot to the Spirit, pivot to the divine. And he talks about returning to joy always, getting that felt sense of aliveness. And I've spoken a lot on joy. And if you look at the Dalai Lama and Bishop Tutu, they wrote a book all on joy. And joy is different from happiness. Joy is really, Paul Ashbutton will tell you, it's a principle. And I love this description. It's the felt sense of aliveness. And if you just stop, if you really get used to getting it, out of your head and into your body, you can return to joy. Yes, there are times when it's not joyous, but if you just stop a minute, we can return to joy. Another point is to pray constantly, but pray is not stop and get on your knees. Prayer is that affirmative. God is, I am, I can, claiming our divine powers. And just at any time, we can be affirmative. And then and Beverly, I know, has really done a lot of good stuff with this on gratitude. But the saying is, in all things, be grateful. Not for all things, but in all things. So in all circumstances, find the gratitude. Okay, now I know you're thinking, okay, dude, that's just really glib. Return to joy. Pray constantly. In all things, be grateful. Well, okay, maybe that's something we can hold to. But for a moment, now let's know, okay, we're 100% divine and 100% human. We got to get that. And we have to deal with that shadow of side. Well, before I leave the idea of the 100% divine, this was also something that Jim said that I liked. The will of God unites us and gives us purpose. We're called to know God, know me, he said. Awaken, become increasingly conscious. Life is consciousness, as Ernest Holmes said. This realization becomes practical when we know God is our source and we're prospered and find security in an unseen supply. When we know God is our life essence and we're healed and realize our wholeness, nothing needs to be added to us. When we know God is love, our relationships are harmonized. And I love this statement. When we know God as strength, we can take one more step and go the extra mile. So that's the practicality. That's the wonderful part of being 100% divine. Now, 100% human. Okay. He talks about how we avoid suffering. We avoid the dark side. We avoid the shadow. But he says, bring these things to our heart and enter that cave, enter that dark without fear. Enter it with faith. Pick up the dark stones and transform them with the fire of loving acceptance. So if something happens to you, there's a trait, whatever it is, just think, okay, it is. Acceptance. It's neither good nor bad, it just is. God is. What is the truth? I am. I speak my spiritual name. I claim a higher power. And detach the thought, memory, or feeling, because it's not your identity. I am more than this. I am a child of God. And again, Michael Singer talks about this. You let things arise, and you're ever so gently just let it go. Let it go. Accepting our humanity allows the divinity to emerge. The work is not changing ourselves, but accepting and loving yourself. Self-care. This is love's work, and it always reveals the truth of being. And it prepares us for something even greater, maybe this idea of global spiritual awakening. So this work is very healing. Healing is the work of consciousness. A consciousness that sees actually nothing to heal. It sees our wholeness. That's what happens when we pray for others. We're in that space. They're in the mess. They are not, someone may ask you to pray for them and they're worried about the cancer diagnosis, the relationship, the job. They're worried. But we can hold the wholeness. We see it for them. The state of mind and heart is a garment that can extend to the entire human family. Now, there's a story in the Bible. I love this parable Jesus tells about the woman. Well, Jesus was asked by his friend Jairus to go heal his daughter. And as he was walking through the crowds, there was a woman who was really sick. They talked about she'd been bleeding. She was really, probably anemic. She was just, at her wit's end. And she reached out and she touched the hem of the garment. And she was healed. And I love the description that Jim has of this. He said, I believe that Jesus was simply centered on the one that he called Father. His consciousness was brimming with life and wholeness. He was not thinking about the woman. He was not even probably thinking about the daughter or the illness or healing or even death. He was centered in God, and the consciousness had no illness or death in it, and certainly didn't have the flow of blood in it, or the sickness or the illness, whatever it was. And I thought, wow, that is really interesting. His consciousness, had just nothing but wholeness, centered on God. The state of consciousness is life in expression. There's no illness in it. If the natural state of the body then becomes evident, this is more than healing. It is wholeness expressed. It is life being lived. So I don't know if any of y'all had any experiences close to that. I know with when I had 2 brushes with cancer, but I was never fearful, honestly. In a way, I feel lucky. I think it was more than luck. I think it was something more. I know Betty has shared some stories. You've shared a story. I've heard many of us have shared these stories of healing and wholeness. And a lot of it is consciousness. It's consciousness. So I invite you to think of your own story. Does it take an army to create this healing garment? You see, if we all have threads of the garment, we're all threads of the garment, and if we all come together, what can we create? And you know what the saying is, for where 2 or 3 gather together in my name, there I am with them. So, like us unitics getting together for coffee, like-minded people, going to Delicious Temptations for lunch, whatever it is. The Monday night self-care, we gather. And it isn't it's not the big group. That's powerful. It really is you missed it, Betty. I talked a lot about the last Sunday. And we know that was a really powerful experience. And Chris, you're doing oneness on Tuesday nights. And it may not be a big crowd, but whatever is happening, the Spirit is there. There's something else there beyond us. That's the beauty of it. And there's another story, y'all, this is from the Old Testament. I love these names. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But you remember the king of Babylon wanted them to worship a certain god, and they were Jewish, and they refused because they captured the Jewish people and took them to Babylon, and the Jewish people held on to their faith. And these 3, they even went in the fire for it, and they weren't doing that. But the interesting thing is what was seen was the 4th presence, and the 4th spirit. It was there, and they were unharmed. So when we stand together in faith in the fire of our human circumstances, our spiritual identity emerges, and we are untouched by the world. That's a bold claim. I know we go through stuff, y'all. I'm not trying to deny that. That doesn't have, what we do deny is the power over us. The power to change our hearts and to take down our faith. We deny that. So, yeah. Well, Jim has written another book that I've studied. I recommend this one. It's good. We talk about the first coming, the coming of Christ, but it could be the coming of any spiritual giant like Muhammad or Buddha, whatever. So that's the first coming. The second coming is our individual awakening, but the third coming is everywhere. And we are kind of, I believe we are evolving toward that. If you read Spiritual Dynamics, we are in that. We're in the next big phase, and everyone else is hanging on by the fingernails in their old stuff. it's hard to change, but I believe that that there's momentum. I know there's momentum. So, mm, so the third time, are we ready? Well, we know we're in transitions here, even here at Unity. So let's do it together, okay? Let's gather and let's grow and let's drip on everyone else in the world, because what we do really does matter. I truly believe it. So, let us take this